Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's financial education presentation presented by CESLOC on elder financial abuse prevention. My name is Vincent Delgado. I'm the Education Outreach Manager here at CESLOC. We do have another guest joining us. Before I introduce her, I do want to go over a few housekeeping items. This presentation is being recorded. So for any of those folks that maybe need to jump off early or want to revisit the presentation, or maybe you have a friend or a family member that you think can benefit from what we're going to be talking about today, again, this presentation is being recorded and a link to the recording will be sent out to you most likely tomorrow. It's a YouTube link, and again, you can revisit it, share it, distribute it as you see best. We do encourage any and all questions throughout the presentation. There should be some type of either Q&A box or chat box somewhere on your device. For me, it's at the very top. For you, it could be at the bottom, the side, you name it. But please use that throughout the presentation today. I encourage any and all questions, and we're going to have time at the end to answer those questions. But throughout the presentation, feel free to drop whatever your question is in there. And if timing works out, I may stop and answer a few questions or share comments or anything like that. Due to the nature of today's topic, and of course, everything's going to be anonymous. I won't repeat names or personal information or anything like that. So again, feel free to distribute or share, I'm sorry, any questions or suggestions that you might have during the presentation. One last thing I want to make sure I share, we do these financial education webinars and presentations every single month. Next month in June, we'll be discussing auto buying. Obviously, purchasing a vehicle has been in the news, whether it's new or used, with potential tariffs looming, the cost of cars may be increasing, and so that auto buying process can be a bit challenging for many. So we're going to be conducting a webinar next month. I believe it's June 11th, same time, on kind of helping you navigate that auto buying process and answer any questions you may have, whether it's price related, lease versus loaning, you name it. You'll also get some cool tips while at the dealership as well too. So look out for that presentation. I believe it's June 11th. With that being said, I did want to introduce one of our guests today. Sandra, do you want to share a little bit about who you are, what you do, those sort of things?
I sure will, Vincent. Thank you so much for your introduction. My name is Sandra Batista Floyd. I'm the Pastoral Growth Branch Manager. Happy to be part of this conversation here. And I've been a manager here for going on 3 years, in banking for 23 years. And so it's always a pleasure to find these events where we could educate our members. And so happy to be here, Vincent.
Awesome. Great. So I do want to, before we officially talk about what we can expect, I did want to play a brief little video here. Audio should be working. So let's just, if it's not, bear with me. But I did want to play this quick little video here to kind of set the stage.
FBI releasing alarming data this week. Seniors across the country losing $4.8 billion in 2024 to scams.
Seniors are targeted by criminals likely because they've had a lifetime to work and potentially build up some savings or some resources. And they're also trusting.
Special agent in charge, Doug Goodwater, tells me the issue is only growing. The dollars lost tower over the $22 million swiped from our state seniors in 2023.
Approximately $50 million was lost by seniors in Oklahoma in 2024.
Goodwater tells me some of the most common scams seniors face can be found right on a cell phone.
Tech support scams, investment scams, romance scams, and spoofing or phishing.
With scams continuing to look more realistic, it's important to be on alert. There are ways you and the seniors in your life can protect themselves.
If you are being pressured to conduct any kind of financial transaction, that you should just stop and walk away. And it's okay to be rude in that scenario. and you should contact a trusted loved one or the institution that the individual claimed to be from through separate, independently confirmed channels.
Reporting, Olivia Hickey, KOCO 5 News.
All righty, so I do like, hopefully, was everybody able to hear that? Everybody, audio was fine. Sandra, were you able to hear that on your end?
We were able to hear clear.
Great, awesome. So I do want to share that video because I think it does kind of, or that audio, because it does kind of paint the picture about the severity of what we're dealing with today, especially as it relates to scams and fraud and protecting yourself and your finances, and especially with the elderly population. It's more prevalent than ever, and I hate to give scammers credit, but they're more advanced than ever before as well too. So having this conversation today about protecting yourself, common scams to keep an eye out for. And maybe what role the financial institution, us as CESLOC, an example, is playing in making sure that we're doing everything we can to keep you and your loved ones safe. I recognize today's presentation, maybe you're someone that's attending that cares for someone that's elderly in your home and you have those worries and concerns. We understand that. And so again, we want to make sure that we're sharing what to be aware of, sharing examples of specific scams. And then again, Sandra's going to definitely speak on what role the financial institution plays, what other resources are out there, and then again, help answer any questions that do come up. There is a comment here. It says the chat function is disabled. So yeah, just use the Q&A box then. That's what it is. So I can see your questions coming in clearly over here on my end. So just use that Q&A option to answer any questions that come up. So let's talk a little bit about what elder financial abuse is, right? You've heard me reference it a few times. And so I just want to kind of clearly state the definition of it. So elder financial abuse is the illegal or improper use of an elder or senior's funds, property, or resources by another individual. And this type of abuse typically occurs when someone's getting access to another person's, personal information, name, social security number, credit card number, bank accounts, you name it. And obviously they're getting a hold of that information without permission, and then, abusing those funds to commit fraud or other crimes. Elder financial abuse is kind of the same thing as just, traditional financial abuse. So if someone gets access to my information and does the same things, they want access to it so that they can abuse the funds, commit fraud and other crimes. And so that's kind of the specific definition of what elder financial abuse is. I did want to talk about. Go ahead.
I think it's also important here to kind of shine some light into the vulnerable individuals as well, not just elder abuse, but it's also those vulnerable individuals that may have a disability that are not able to understand or grasp the concept of the financial world. And so we also look into those in our financial world. And so I think that's also important to emphasize there.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I appreciate you chiming in and sharing that, because we obviously deal with a variety of different populations, and it's incredibly important that we are doing what we can to protect those that to your point, for whatever reason, need extra assistance or extra protections, that vulnerable population. So that's a very good point. Thanks for mentioning that, Sandra.
No problem.
So let's talk a little bit about the impacts of elder financial abuse, and it's incredibly alarming. So in 2024, and this is all according to ABC News, seniors ages 60 and over had total losses of over $4.8 billion, with a B, billion, over $4.8 billion. And that's a 26% increase compared to last year. So it's only going up. Average dollar losses for 60 and over, those age 60 and over, exceeded $83,000. The average, that's a staggering number. I see that number and I don't have $83,000 to lose. And so, you see that and it just kind of breaks your heart knowing that is a real number. every day, nearly 10,000 adults in the United States turn 65. And so I say that because that population of those being 60 or plus or seniors continues to grow, and it's only going to grow. And so this population, this vulnerable population, needs this information now more than ever. They've accumulated a life of potential wealth, and it's important that we protect it. So again, it just shines a spotlight on how important getting this information out there is. And the consequences, we kind of touched on it last week, but it goes beyond just the financial loss. There's the mental health issues, the physical complications that come from it. Again, you lose your savings, or most of your savings, or your home, you name it, and that can wreak havoc on you mentally, and it can deteriorate your body physically from all the stress. And so it goes just beyond the financial loss for many. The impacts are deep and are felt for a long period of time. One last thing here, as we talk about kind of the impacts, 1 in 44 incidents of elder financial abuse are reported to authorities. So that's a very, very low number, only 1 in 44. And there's a reason for that. The senior population is potentially embarrassed, or there's a fear of kind of losing independence. And we'll talk about this a little bit later on in the presentation, but a lot of times this financial abuse happens from someone that they know. Could be a family member, could be a trusted friend. And so reporting that could really shift the family dynamic. There was a family that, my mom's friends with a family, and she shared a story of one of the siblings taking advantage of the older mom's finances, and the havoc that wrecked on the family ecosystem and dynamic. So you can see how people would be uncomfortable wanting to report this or share this with someone because of the potential ramifications that can come from reporting such crime. So it's very tricky, and it's very dicey, which is why, again, we're here to make sure that we can share any and all information to protect yourself and your finances, and other resources that are available out there for you. Sandra, anything to add on anything so far?
Yeah, I think it also stems, it goes back to the education piece. Sometimes they may know that it might be a scam, but they don't know who to go to, or where to go to. And I think the lack of education is also, it's one of the most unrecognized things.
Definitely, definitely. So let's talk a little bit about what scammers want. And it's probably pretty self-explanatory, but I think it's important because it goes beyond just name and social security number. If they can get access to your date of birth, your addresses, they obviously want your credit card numbers, they want bank account numbers, they want passwords, they want family information, they want your benefits. There's a lot of scams out there that are tied to medical benefits, or military benefits that you might be receiving. And the next 4 or 5 slides will talk about common scams, and speak to how they may get this information. But this is simply what they're looking for. If a scammer can get access to any number of these bullet points here, they can begin to get access to potentially your bank account. They can begin to get access to open up loans or lines of credit in your name. They can begin to pretend to be you and start receiving some of your public benefits, again, regardless of what they might be. If they get your family information, they can use that as well too to maybe bypass security questions. So all of this stuff, if placed in the wrong hands or shared with the wrong person, can be damaging. So we say it all the time, and I'll say it as we get towards the end of the presentation on what you can do to protect yourself, but keep this information as close to you as possible. SESLOC does a variety of shred days. A lot of the documents that you receive may have some of this information. Maybe it has the last 4 of an account number or the last 4 of a social. It obviously has your address. Maybe it'll have date of birth, depending on the document. So make sure whenever, in the mail, if you're receiving information, shred it or hold on to it and take it to one of SESLOC's shred days that we have. I know, Sandra, you're hosting one in Paso in October, I believe it is.
That is correct.
Yeah, I believe SLO has one coming up the first week of June. So that's a safe way to make sure you're destroying your documents. You just come, you drop off a box, and you leave, and you get peace of mind knowing that it's been professionally destroyed, and no one can potentially get a hold of that information. So again, just wanted to share. It's kind of obvious, but these are the stuff that they're looking for and what they want to get their hands on. Okay, so the next 2 or 3 slides here, we're going to talk about the different types of scams, and things that you can keep an eye out for. So the 2 most common ones that we're seeing right now are these financial institution spoofing and phishing scams. So we'll talk about the first one real quick. It's financial institution spoofing. So a fraudster or a scammer may impersonate a legitimate financial institution like a bank or a credit union and trick you or someone you know into sharing sensitive information or engaging in fraudulent transactions. So you can see the photo down here at the bottom left. On the bottom left photo, it says JP Morgan Chase. So the way it works is they're able to call you, and it looks as if it's a call from your financial institution. Could be Cesslock, and they pretend to be a representative from said organization and try to get you to share your personal information. And to your credit, potentially, like, it looks real. The caller ID says it's from the financial institution, and they're speaking in a professional tone. But it's oftentimes a scam. And just understand that financial institutions especially aren't just going to randomly call you and ask for that personal information, unless you've already begun to engage in some type of maybe applying for a loan. Like, Sandra, can you give an example of maybe, if there even is one, of when you might call a member and ask for personal information, or would you even do that?
We wouldn't do that, not for personal information. We would call them if it was in regards of a loan that they're working with, if it was in regards of a questionable transaction that they previously had done a claim on or previously had inquired about, but never to ask them specific information like date of birth, social security, routing number, account number, because we already have that information.
Exactly. And so the biggest thing that Sandra mentioned there was, unless you're already kind of engaged in conversations with Cesslock, like you're getting an auto loan or a home loan, and even then, they're just, Sandra and her team or anybody else at Cesslock isn't going to call you and ask for some of that personal information. So that's a dead giveaway right there. Like, hang up. And even as the video said, you have every right to be rude. Sandra's not going to take offense if you hang up on her and say, I'm just trying to be safe to protect my money, right, Sandra? If
Not
someone
at
called
all.
you back and explained the situation, you probably give them some grace, right?
Absolutely. Another thing that I do want to say, Vincent, is that normally our staff will always ask for a password before we give any
Yep.
information out to members. So we'll ask them what the verbal password is whenever we do call them. And so that way we could identify them.
Exactly. Great. That's another great point. And so shifting a little bit to the phishing aspect of it, it's very similar, except instead of them calling you, you'll get a text message, and it'll look like the picture right here on the right, and it'll say, this says, it looks like it's from Scotiabank. We've noticed multiple failed logins on your online banking. Click this link to confirm something, and you can go from there. But that again, that's a scam and that's fake. That what they're going to do is you're going to click that link, and it's not going to take you to your Scotiabank login. It's going to take you to a different website, but it's going to say your username and password. So you're unknowingly going to enter that information. And then right there, the scammers have your login for your online banking. And that happens all the time, not just from a financial institution. Like, there's a big one going around right now for paying your car toll roads. You'll get a text that says, you failed to pay your car toll. You traveled on like a toll highway or whatever. Pay your toll here. And you click this suspicious link, you type in your card information, and boom, they have it. And so it's not just limited to financial institutions. It's a common one, though, because they want to get access to it. But it's just another example of, they're sending you something fake. They're trying to get you to give them your personal information so that they can have access to it. And so in this specific example, you can see on the right, that text message isn't a legit message. It says no reply at managecontrol.online. Nothing about Scotiabank is listed in that text message. So that's another like really dead giveaway. The link right here that they want you to click on isn't like a scotiabank.org or .com or whatever. It's a link of jumbled words. So it's just important to pay attention to those items because oftentimes those are dead giveaways that you're receiving a scam. And to the point I made about Sandra, like if you get something like that from Scotiabank, call them directly and just say, hey, I got a text message from you guys saying that there's failed login attempts. Is that accurate? Is that true? And they're going to say, no, everything looks fine on our end. Like that's probably a scam. Don't click on it. So, making sure and taking 30 seconds or 45 seconds out of your day to call and confirm, whether it's JP Morgan or Scotiabank or Ceslock, like just taking that 45 seconds to get peace of mind and understand that that's a scam that you're dealing with could potentially save you thousands of dollars in getting scammed or taken advantage of. So, those are just a few examples of financial institution related scams and phishing that, again, unfortunately, our elderly population falls victim to, but it's not just the elderly. It's those that it's often, every generation that's falling victim to these types of scams. Anything else you want to add as it relates to these two, Sandra?
Yes, I also want to add the emails. Sometimes we see a lot of members come in with emails from supposedly our financial institution, which is also another form of spoofing. And they want you to log in. And so that login takes you into a different website. And that's something that we should clearly stay away from. Sometimes they'll say, you've been locked out of your account. We need you to log in. And so I wanted to emphasize on that one, Vincent.
Great. No, thank you for sharing. Okay, so moving on to a couple other scams that we're seeing here that may, affect not everyone, but also the elderly population as well too. This top one especially maybe affects, our seniors, our romance scams. Um, you know, Sometimes seniors, depending on the stage in their life, they may be missing companionship. Maybe their significant other is not with them anymore, and so they're missing some of that companionship. And scammers know that. Scammers are going to prey on your vulnerability. Scammers are going to prey on urgency, like give me this money now, or you'll get arrested, or whatever it might be. And so the romance scams is one way that scammers are preying kind of on maybe your seeking companionship. And so scammers will create, maybe fake social media profiles, or there was an article in the news about what's the game, Word with Friends, I think, or maybe you're playing chess online with somebody else. And then you begin to have conversations with this person and you begin to build, a relationship or a friendship with this individual. And once they start seeing that, they have gained your trust, they will start making asks. They may ask you to pay for emergencies or travel or you name it. They may be asking for money. They're in a difficult situation and they need you to wire them something, or they need you to sign something over to them. You name it. And so they're really just preying on that loneliness and lack of companionship. But at the end of the day, they're just trying to get your personal information. That's not to say you shouldn't, you should avoid playing Words with Friends or having social media accounts. That's not what I'm saying. It's understanding the people that you're communicating with. And the second that someone you've never met before begins to ask you personal information, and if you've never met them, you've never done you've just never met with them in person, and they start asking you for some of your personal information, that's a dead giveaway. And I would stop communicating with that person, right away. And that's second. And so again, romance scams are very common. Please be very, very cautious of the people that you are communicating with online. Another very common one are sweepstakes and lottery scams, and this affects everybody. But again, it's scammers preying on certain emotions. So scammers will call, email, text message, send, snail mail, saying that you've won a lottery, you've won a prize, you've won a sweepstakes. Do you remember when you entered that raffle at XYZ, right? And scammers are smart now. So like I can probably Google Sandra's name and see that Sandra is in Paso Robles and say, and insert a store here. Like, and I can say, hey, Sandra, remember you entered that raffle at, insert store name in Paso. And whether she did or not, she just may be like, yeah, sure, whatever. All of that stuff they can easily and quickly find online. So it's very easy for you to just think, maybe I did enter a raffle. Maybe I did complete a sweepstakes thing. And they're going to say, you've won the prize. You get a jackpot of $15,000. But in order for us to deposit that $15,000 into your bank account, can you share with us your routing number, your bank account number? We obviously need your first and last name. We need your address for tax filing reasons, you name it. And the next thing you know, you've given them all of that information, thinking that you won a lottery or a sweepstakes, when in actuality, they're just trying to get your information. And then again, they can begin to take advantage of your finances. They'll claim that they need it, again, to deposit a check. They'll claim that they need it to file taxes. They'll claim that you need to pay a fee in order to receive your winnings. Or they need a blank check from you with whatever. And those are, again, are dead giveaways that it's a scam. So be very cautious of, if you receive this type of communication, it's most likely a scam. I don't consider myself a lucky person, so I don't think I'd ever be winning a lottery, even if I did play it. And I don't know about you, how you may feel, but again, it's just a scam, and they're preying on people's vulnerabilities. Times are hard, and if finances are tough to come by, it may be tempting to think, yes, you won a big lottery or a big sweepstakes, when in actuality, they're just preying again on the vulnerability of folks. Anything to add on these two, Sandra?
Yes, the sweepstakes, Vincent, we've seen here where a big red flag is where they ask you, you've won this sweepstake, let's say $5,000, $6,000. We'll be sending you a check. Out of that check, please send us back 2,000 something to cover whatever cost. That normally is also a huge red flag, and something that we see often with those sweepstakes and lottery scams. With romance scams, sometimes they want, those cash cards that you could buy at grocery stores, for you to
Yes.
fill them up and send them the card number. And that one is unfortunate because there's no trace on those. Once they're used, they're used. And so that's something to look for as well. But you mentioned you hit every point on that one.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more in a few slides about what Sandra's referencing, the cash cards or buying gift cards. That's another just like complete dead giveaway. And that stuff, it's similar to just like handing over cash. You won't get that back, which again we'll talk about here in a few slides. But that you brought up such a good point with that, Sandra. Okay, there's two more common scams that I want to make sure we touch on because they are incredibly important. One of them is the grandparent scam. Very, very common. Again, they're preying on your vulnerability. So typically what happens is you'll receive a call or a text message maybe from someone convincing you that your grandchild is in danger. Or again, with the advancements of artificial intelligence, like there can be even voiceovers. Well, they'll call and it sounds like it's your grandson or granddaughter saying that, again, I'm in trouble. As you can see on this example on the right here, it's, hi, Grandpa, it's me, Sebastian. Is that you? Yes, it's me, Sebastian. I'm in trouble. I need money for bail. What happened? Please don't tell, mom or dad. I'll get in so much trouble. And you'll think, again, I want to help my grandkids. Something's wrong. I don't want them to get in trouble. I just need to make sure that they're safe. So you'll send money, wire money, you name it. But it's a scammer just preying on your vulnerability. And they'll demand money, via a wire transfer. Again, the gift card that was mentioned, or through Bitcoin, and all of it just to take advantage of your finances. So if you're faced with something like this, hang up and call your grandkid directly. So if they have a phone, or call your, the mom or dad directly and say, is everything okay? Now's not a time to worry if they'll get in trouble with mom or dad. Now's the time to protect your finances and your nest egg, right? So the best thing that you can do is hang up right away, stop communication, stop replying, call your grandkid directly, get a hold of your grandkid directly, or if, maybe if they don't have a phone or something like that, then call their parents right away and just say, hey, is everything okay? I'm getting a call or messages that, Sebastian's in trouble. And again, to the point we made very earlier with Sandra, no one's gonna fault you for doing your due diligence. People are gonna fault you if you continue to go through with it, and maybe you lose, 15 or 20 grand. I would much rather you explain the situation and double check and be safe than move forward blindly and potentially losing money. Another common one here are healthcare scams. So again, the elderly population traditionally is receiving benefits, whether that's through healthcare benefits or Social Security, or maybe they're receiving benefits from the military. You name it. Regardless, scammers will call and pose as someone from, again, Social Security or your healthcare or the VA, and they'll make a claim that something needs to be updated within your file, or you need to update your banking information. Maybe your last direct deposit didn't go through, or they're trying to do a direct deposit for your benefits and it didn't go through. So can you please just update your routing information, your bank account information? And you all, or the individual is like, yeah, I need my benefits. It's what I survive off of, right? It helps me live day to day. I need my money. Um, Provide all of that information, because you don't want to miss a direct deposit. You don't want to miss any of your funds. But again, you're just kind of handing over that personal information, and they're just going to commit ID theft. So, as with everything, you could guess what I'm going to say next. Hang up, call maybe Social Security back directly, call the VA or whoever it might be, call, you name it, call them back, call your healthcare provider and say, hey, is anything wrong with my account? What's going on? Are you guys? And they'll say, yeah, everything's fine over here on our end, Sandra. Like, what, is everything okay? And just confirm that it's actually them calling. And again, what you'll quickly find out is it was most likely a scammer. And so you would have made the right choice in doing that. Anything on this, Sandra?
Yes, I actually want to add a personal story here on the
Please.
grandparent scam. It wasn't so much grandparent, but it involved my son, where his friends, they somehow managed to duplicate my son's profile, and send a request to his friends on social media. And so they send a request to his friends asking for money because he was in trouble. And so, of course, one of the friends unfortunately fell for it, and he lost $300, and
Wow.
he's unable to get it back because he said, yes, I will send you the money. And so that alone made it to where his claim was insufficient for him to get his money back, because he participated in it. And so they duplicated it, my son's profile, and then sent the request to all of his friends. And unfortunately, they fell for it. But it incorporated social media, but also the grandparents scam, in a way.
Yeah, and again, I said it at the very beginning. I hate to give scammers credit, but some of them are very intelligent. Some of them, it's a lucrative business, as you saw, and they can do things like easily duplicate social media profiles, or use artificial intelligence to create a fake voice, or create a fake profile, or you name it. And it proves to be effective. I mean, it's just scary how effective it is. So always just make sure that you're being aware of all of that stuff.
Yes.
Okay, so we want to transfer. We want to shift gears here a little bit to something that we kind of teased at the very beginning, and it's kind of the elephant in the room, right? Especially as it relates to our elderly population. We mentioned at the very beginning, but about 70% of elder financial abuse occurs from someone that the elder knows. Maybe it's a family member or a friend, but that, maybe it's a caretaker or, someone that provides or oversees the day-to-day finances. And, it's obvious these people have access to the seniors, personal information. They have ready and quick access to it. Because they are potentially providing for them, day to day, week to week, month to month. And so that personal information is right there in front of them, and it could be tempting to, want to take advantage. Um, you know, Family members or caregivers are often the powers of attorney, which makes abusing and exploiting these issues much easier. Again, understanding that the chat and the comment or the Q&A box is anonymous if anyone wants to share maybe a situation that they've been in. But again, I alluded to the family that my mom knew, and it was someone very close to them that had been taking money from the mom, and there were obvious signs when there were heavy cash withdrawals from ATMs, when that much money being withdrawn was incredibly unusual. So it happens very, very frequently. Sandra, I don't know if you want to, and on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about CESLOC's role, but I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about how does the power of attorney role, like what role do they play in owning an account at CESLOC if you have a senior who's a member at CESLOC, but someone else does the transactions for them? Like, can you explain a little bit more about that dynamic and maybe what you see?
Yeah, so on our end, we're able to facilitate the rep payee accounts. Most of the time, they will bring in a letter appointing that particular person a rep payee. As far as online banking, the online banking would have to be done on the primary, which would be the person that the rep payee is caring for. But they're able to get statements, they're able to transact on their behalf, and so it would be one of those accounts that we call them our specialty accounts. It would have to get reviewed, approved, because we look for specific wording, but we do ask questions as well whenever they do come in with the rep payee, um, uh, and just to make sure that we're understanding the transaction completely. And most of the time, rep payees are well aware of the situation and the status of the primary member. And so, we treat it like any other account, except with a little bit more caution.
Thanks for sharing. And I think one other thing, especially as it relates to this, many families have identified that one person who, are the trusted caregiver and maybe manage the finances. But I think it's also important to have a backup, or a couple of people that are monitoring, the financial institution's account. They're able to see it in online banking and have access to it because it holds other people accountable as well too. In the situation that I described, there was one person and one point person only that was managing that financial institution's account on behalf of their mom. And so there was no one there to like kind of keep checks and balances, and it wasn't discovered until later when a situation popped up. So maybe if there's 2 or 3 people that have access to it and can hold people accountable, that's one way to maybe prevent these situations from happening. But it is definitely something that we wanted to make sure we touched on because it's all too real and all too common. Sandra, again, I'm gonna have you take this one, and if you can, speak about if you do have maybe anybody, doesn't have to be just a senior, but if you have a member that comes into your branch and it appears as if they're making an unusual amount, or they're making a withdrawal for an unusual amount and they don't do that frequently, or they're appearing as if maybe they're in distress as they're making a withdrawal. How are you at the branch, and how are you and your staff? What role are you playing in potentially mitigating these types of issues from happening? Like if I go in and it's obvious that I'm making a withdrawal, because I'm being scammed? Like, how are you all at Cesslock trying to combat that?
Yeah, thank you, Vincent. So on our end, we look for suspicious activity, anything that the member is stating that's sort of red flags. We look for red flags. We look for indicators where, they got something in the mail that's suspicious that they've never received before. They got emails, text messages, and they're just following the orders. Sometimes they'll say, "I'm here because I'm following, the orders from this person," and so that is a red flag. We talk to them if it's out of pattern, if it's all of a sudden they haven't been in the bank and they're in the bank visiting and wanting to do a large withdrawal, then we ask more deep questions. For example, what are you using the money for? Have you personally spoken to the person if you're buying something from a person? Um, we'll ask them a series of questions in particular to that item too. That way it's more descriptive. But we really ask in-depth questions. We look for any suspicious, wording. If it is in the email, we look for checks. Sometimes we'll even Google the companies. We'll do a little bit of um, digging on our end, and so if we see something off, we really will not go through with the transaction, and we'll say, let's step back and maybe reflect on this transaction. I usually bring them into my office, and I'll even call the company myself and speak to them and ask them questions. I'll give you a story today. Just today, we had a member wanting to withdraw 10K and he was going to invest it into gold, but he had never met the representative. The representative didn't even have a license to give him. I Googled the company. He literally was going to withdraw $10,000 and send it to this person in a form of a cashier's check. He instructed for him to send it in a PO box or to his PO box, and he was so thankful that we weren't able to go through with it because he would have lost 10,000. And he was a fisherman. This is like hardworking money that he had earned throughout the years. And so yeah, we talked to them. We looked for specific red flags. I even call them myself. I call the company or the person that's asking for this money, and I'll ask them particular questions.
That's great. I appreciate you sharing because I know it's always, again, it's a team effort, right? To make sure that we're preventing these scammers from getting this information. And I know we get that question all the time, right? Like what is Cesslock's role in helping kind of prevent this, or what are maybe you doing? So I appreciate you sharing and then sharing that personal story as well too. I myself being a Cesslock member, it makes me feel good that you all are helping fight that fight. Any questions as it relates to kind of this part of the presentation? Again, feel free to use that Q&A box that you have to ask any questions. And we will have time at the end. We've got a few more slides here, and then we'll have some time at the end. I did want to review a couple of the things that you can do to protect yourself. We've already alluded to some of it as we were discussing the scams, but I do want to recap a few of them. So how to protect yourself, how to spot scams, links to unfamiliar web pages. Again, dead giveaway. If it's an unfamiliar web page, don't click on it. If it looks like what it looks like in this text message right here, don't click on it. Spelling or grammar mistakes is incredibly common, especially when it comes through emails or text message. If the spelling's off, if the grammar's off, if the font looks weird or the font is different from one sentence to the next, again, that's a really big giveaway. Who it's from isn't official or on email or text. So this is another good one right here. Like the text message says Scotiabank, but in the contact right here, it says no reply and manage control.online. That doesn't say it's from Scotiabank. So it's very unclear who this is actually coming from. Is a major giveaway. Again, I get phone calls all the time, and sometimes it says spam likely. I love that it says that on the iPhone. Sometimes it's just a random number, and I don't know who it's from. So nowadays, I've just adopted the philosophy of, like, if it's important, you'll leave a text message. If it's my doctor, if it's someone important, or not a text message, you'll leave a voicemail, and I'll get back to you then. If you don't, then I know it's likely someone that I don't need to be speaking with because they're trying to sell me something or they're scamming me on something. Request for sensitive information with urgency. I alluded to that. Be cautious of anybody requesting your sensitive information. We reviewed what that list looks like, but especially if they're doing it with urgency. Sandra, we need you to fill this out now. If you don't complete this, you will be fined. You know, the authorities will be called on you. If they're requesting stuff and they're making threats with urgency, that's something to be very, very cautious of. And then lastly, unsolicited, if to Sandra's point, if you're not already going through an existing like auto buy or like a car purchase, going through an auto loan with Cesslock or buying a home, like there's no way that they're going to call you and ask for that personal information. So if it's unsolicited, if you didn't expect them to call you, you didn't already have any business with them or an open ticket or whatever you want to call it, that's another dead giveaway as well too. A couple other things, at least on how to protect ourselves. Don't send money unless you're sure it's a real, and don't send money unless you're sure it's the real person who contacted you. Hang up. Again, call your grandchild, call the friend's phone, see if the story checks out. Call the company itself just to make sure that they're legit, as Sandra had mentioned that she's been doing. Is the person asking for gift cards? This is a sign that it's probably a scam. Since when someone is really in need of something, if they're in danger, they really need money, they're not going to call for a gift card, right? Like make that make sense. If I'm in danger, or if I'm in a situation where I need assistance, I'm not going to say, hey, can you send it to me in a gift card? Nope, that's another dead giveaway. And like it's hard to track that, you know? So think of it that way. That's why they're asking for it in a gift card. It's hard to track it and you can't get your money back. Once you buy that gift card and hand it over, that's as good, it's as good as gone. You know, talk about these things. You probably have heard of this type of scam or know someone who has received one of these calls or emails. So if you're getting them, call somebody else, ask for verification, call your kids, call your neighbor, ask your friend, whoever, like, hey, is this legit? Have you been receiving this? Have those conversations because maybe they've gotten it as well too, and you all can talk about it. Lastly here, or one last thing here before we move on, always list, I mentioned it, always list maybe two parties on a power of attorney for that checks and balances. The more people that have eyes on an account, the easier it is to make sure people are being honest. Use an attorney or trusted professional, maybe if you don't trust the family. Choose someone who's responsible, organized, honest, and never hesitate to report suspicious behavior, whether it's you that's dealing with it, whether you know someone that's dealing with it, neighbor, someone in the neighborhood, you know, don't hesitate to report that suspicious behavior to make sure that someone that you know isn't getting taken advantage of. Lastly here, because I want to make sure we leave time for Q&A, here's a list of resources. So there's the National Elder Fraud Hotline. The number's listed right there on the screen, 833-FRAUD. And then if you suspect elder financial abuse, report it to Adult Protective Services. So I don't have it listed on here, but there is a local number for Adult Protective Services. Let me look that up real quick. As I'm doing that, Sandra, do you have anything else you want to add as we close out?
Would love to add one more type of fraud that we're seeing or have heard of as well, Vincent. And
Yeah.
this, you travel abroad and you see QRC codes on the bottom, like on the floor as you're walking. Do not scan those.
Yeah.
Sometimes fraudsters will use QRC codes to get your information. And so QRC codes, I don't know if a lot of people are aware of those. It's the sort of like a square that looks like you could use your phone, and it was very popular during COVID times.
Yep.
Our QRC codes sometimes are also a way of scammers to utilize.
Yeah. Because they can get, yeah, what it'll do is you scan it, it pops up, and it may ask for you to enter information. So that's a very good point. Adult Protective Services here in San Luis Obispo. If you want to jot it down and at least just have it, the number is 805-781-1790. That's the phone number for Adult Protective Services. Again, they provide, you know, intervention to dependent adults or seniors, and they can help when there's allegations of abuse, financial abuse, and intervene when there's maybe care not being provided or not being adequate enough. So again, that's the Adult Protective Services here in San Luis Obispo. There's also, again, reporting it to your the financial institution, local police. Those are also good steps to take as well too. So now I'll again, feel free to chime in any questions that you do have. Sandra and I can definitely hang out for a few minutes here and answer any questions you do have. I did want to share a great resource that we at CESLOC utilize. We have a wonderful partner called GreenPath Financial Wellness. So they're a great resource that we guide members and non-CESLOC members to for any assistance. They do specialize in debt management plans. So if you or someone you know is struggling with debt, GreenPath can help you. They'll do a free consultation to let you know maybe some of your next steps for decreasing your debt, but they have great debt management plans that is available to CESLOC members and non-members. Just make sure if you do call, you mention CESLOC. And they may ask, how did you hear about us? Just mention CESLOC. They have a ton of other great resources as well too. So if you're dealing with maybe foreclosure, or you need some rental counseling or home buying counseling, they can talk with you through that. Understanding student loans, credit report reviews. They have a ton of great resources. So again, you can also just Google GreenPath CESLOC and it'll take us to the co-branded website. But if you want to utilize them for any other reasons, you can give them a call. And again, just mention that CESLOC sent you, or that you heard about GreenPath through CESLOC. Make sure you mention that. Any questions as we kind of close this out here? Questions, comments, anything people want to share or provide? Not seeing anything in the Q&A box. Let's see here. Looks like we might have one. Are there people who offer services to seniors to help with organizing bill paying online? People who have a fiduciary responsibility by profession who can help with financial management, not debt, just keeping things organized and checking up on seniors' financial issues. That's a great question. Do you know of anything like that, Sandra? So essentially, is there a service that will help seniors, with like paying bills or making sure that their bills are organized? Do you know of anything like that?
Vincent, I don't. On our end, if you come in, we could look at the bill pay and kind of go over everything that's automatically paid, and go over that part, but not a specific program or system for that.
Gotcha. So I think someone chimed in and said professional fiduciary services. Is that the name of one? Professional fiduciary. Oh, give me a minute and I can get you a website. Okay, so 1 second here. It looks like someone else in the chat box has potentially an answer. But that's a great and that's a good point. You can, if you're a CESLOC member, you can pop in and they may help set up a few things or take a look at a few things. If you're not, go to your financial institution, and then they may help you as well too. Let's see. So it looks like, yeah, I'm having trouble finding some. It looks like it's mainly just investing stuff that I'm seeing, but it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to call some of these that are here locally. Yeah, I don't have a list or a name. That's actually a good question. Maybe I can do some research on that and see if I can gather some. A lot of it looks like it's more long-term, like investment planning, not kind of your month-to-month bill pay, but that's a great service. I'll actually I'll actually do some digging on that. I have your name, the person that's asking this. So let me do some digging, and then see if I can't send you any further referrals. That was a good question.
Great.
One other person chimed in and said PFAC is the organization. Are they a national one or PFAC? Okay. I'll look that up. Professional Fiduciary Association of California, is that the one? They are California wide. Okay, so you might want to explore that. It's called Professional Fiduciary Association of California. Their mission is to educate, advocate, and advancement for professional fiduciaries. Okay, that might be one resource to try then. And I'll send you, the person that asked, I'll send you a link to the website I'm seeing. Great question. Any other questions here? Well, as we wait to see if any other come in, Sandra, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. All your insight and information was incredibly valuable. You do a great job at speaking at what you're doing at the branch level, and I know you guys are all doing great work, you know, kind of helping our members. So appreciate you joining us and sharing some of your insight.
Thank you, Vincent. Yeah, we do a great job with asking all the questions. I know at times it can be overwhelming for members, and but just know that we do it with the most care and concern for your money, as I know you trust us with your money. So we just want to make sure that it is protected, and so we thank you.
Awesome. Well, if we don't have any other questions here, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Keep an eye out for a recording, which will be sent tomorrow with a link to the recording. So please distribute, share, revisit anything that came up. And then again, to the individual that reached out and asked that question, I'll make sure I share that the link to that website with you here shortly. So again, thank you so much for joining. Hope to see you all at our presentation next month. Great, thank you. I got the email address as well too, so I'll hold on to that. Great, thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.